Pitching is supposed to be difficult at Coors Field. You have higher elevation. The ball doesn't move as much. Well, Eury Perez said, forget all that. I'm going to make it look easy.
You are Locked On Marlins, your daily podcast on the Miami Marlins.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Marlins. I'm your host, Jeremiah Geiger. I'm a diehard Marlins fan, and I've podcasted about the team for the last 4 seasons. You can find me on Twitter at Jeremiah Geiger2, and thank you for making Locked On Marlins your first listen of the day. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. Hit subscribe on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Leave a like and leave a comment down below. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And on today's show, we're going to recap Eury Perez and his dominant performance in one of the hardest ballparks to pitch in. That's Coors Field, the Rockies' home stadium up in Denver, Colorado. We're also going to take a look at Javier Sanoja and what he means to this team. And how about Joey Wiemer? Do the Marlins have something there with him? They obviously brought him in for a reason. So we're going to take a look under the hood and see if there's some tangible metrics and qualities about him that the Marlins can work with, that he can be a part of 2026 moving forward. Let's start with Eury Perez, however, because if you listen to yesterday's show, one of the concerns I had was Eury and his four-seam fastball heading into Coors Field and him not being able to rely upon his secondary pitches, and thus he would get into trouble, and the Rockies, although not a good lineup, the Rockies would put some damage on him. That was not the case. Eury went 5 shutout innings. He allowed just 1 hit, no walks, and 6 strikeouts. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. You'll take that absolutely for a 22-year-old going up to a park like Coors Field and not just performing well, but dominating. Now, the one disappointing aspect of yesterday's start from Perez, he didn't get to pitch deeper into the ball game because there was a rain delay. A rain delay cut his outing short. He was just at 71 pitches. He had eclipsed 5 innings, just that 1 hit, no walks, and then a rain delay happens. The game gets not suspended, but put on hold for a little bit, and that ended Eury's night. Clayton McCullough goes to the bullpen. Ultimately, he goes to Tyler Phillips, then Michael Peterson, Ronnie Enriquez, and Peterson and Enriquez ran into some trouble. The Rockies made this very close. The Marlins were up 6-0. The Marlins get the win, though. They win the ball game 6-5, and Eury Perez gets the win. Did Eury rely on his fastball? No, he didn't. And that's a bit of a nuanced question, because although he primarily relied on the fastball, it wasn't the make or break pitch, because, like I said, the induced vertical break is going to decrease, and it did. On the season, Eury's four-seam fastball has 18 inches of induced vertical break. Yesterday, his average vert was just 15. So you saw the ball died a little bit more from Eury. It wasn't as electric. It wasn't moving as much, and that's okay. He still threw it 31 times, 44%. It was still his primary offering, but he didn't rely on it to go get the whiffs, to go get the strikeouts, the swing and misses. And that's what I mean by he didn't rely on it in totality, which is fine. Eury got just 2 whiffs on the four-seamer, and then the slider and sweeper, he got a combined 10 whiffs. So although he wasn't missing bats with the four-seamer, which we've been accustomed to seeing Eury do, he was getting whiffs with his secondary pitches. He threw the slider 32% of the time and the sweeper 18% of the time. 23 sliders, 13 sweepers. And all his strikeouts were via secondary pitches. So the 6 strikeouts, there were four on the slider, 2 on the sweeper, none on the fastball. Still threw the fastball, still established, his presence in the zone, but he wasn't counting on the 4-seamer to be as dominant as it usually was. And I'm fine with that because showed a step forward in the development of Eury Perez. The ability to go get swings and misses via the secondary, via that sweeper. We all know the Marlins organization is sweeper U. In college football, there's arguments and discussions. Who's QB U? Who's wide receiver U? Well, I think the Marlins are sweeper U because these guys, this organization, director Bill Hazel, pitching coach Daniel Moskis, they love the sweeper from top to bottom throughout the organization, and it worked out pretty well for Eury last night. So I'm happy with the start. It was against a subpar Rockies lineup, but I'm not putting emphasis on that aspect of it. The biggest concern, I think, was Eury against Eury last night. Not necessarily Eury against the Rockies lineup. It was, how can Eury Perez improve against himself? How can he take that step forward in terms of command, in terms of location, in certain parts of the count, how often he's throwing certain pitches? And I think he did a very, very good job at that. And the Marlins got the win. Another couple takeaways from last night's game. Tyler Phillips continues to just be really effective for the Fish. He went 2 shutout innings, walked 1, struck out 1. His ERA now is under 3. So Tyler Phillips on the season, 2.99 ERA, and that's across 72 1/3 innings. That's not a small sample size. You look at last year with the Philadelphia Phillies, Phillips 36 2/3. Now that was primarily as a starter. He started 7 games. He had a 6.87. So he's clearly found a role in the Marlins bullpen. He has the ability to pitch multiple innings if Clayton McCullough needs that, which I like. There too often it feels like there are relievers who are just 1 inning and that's it. You're not going to rely on Ronnie Enriquez at this point, at this juncture in the season, to go out and get you, 2 1/3. It's just not going to happen. But with Phillips, you can, and he's an absolute maniac. He's a madman, and I can't wait to continue watching him pitch throughout his Marlins career. I think he's going to be a really big part of this bullpen in 2026. And guess what? He also throws a sweeper. So something to watch for there. I do think it's also important to note the Marlins almost gave this game away. Ronnie Enriquez ran into some trouble, but at the end of the day, he still got the job done. He gave up 2 runs, 1 earned, didn't walk anyone, struck out 1, but with the tying run on third, he got the win. 11 games left now in the season. Sleeper Marlins, the Sleeper Marlins account on Twitter posted, what will their record be? And I retweeted the tweet and I said 12-0. So this is 1 step forward in my prediction. If the Marlins do finish 12-0, they would be 82-80, over 500. So you never know. You never know. One of the players that hasn't got enough recognition or discussed about as much this season on the show, and I want to change that in the next segment, is Javier Sanoja. He's been an important piece of this Marlins team, both defensively and offensively, and we're going to dive into a Javier Sanoja discussion and breakdown right after this. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every single day, but on PrizePicks, when you make the right decision, it means you can cash in. With football back, PrizePicks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all less than 60 seconds. It's quick, it's easy, and it's a great way to follow along with football, whether that's your favorite team or just the game that you're watching at that moment. And you can check for projections like Thursday Night Football. You have the Bills and the Dolphins. Look at Josh Allen's total passing yards, Tua Tagovailoa, James Cook on the Bills. I know there's a lot of Dolphins fans that listen to the podcast. Maybe you find a Dolphin player that you think is going to hit the over, then go ahead and throw some money on there and you could be a winner. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Hey, do me a favor. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple or any podcast platform that you're currently listening to Locked On Marlins to, hit follow, leave a 5-star review, a comment. You can comment there as well. Let's continue to grow the show. Javier Sanoja. What a interesting player Javier Sanoja is. And it's just he's a unique case in Major League Baseball. You don't see too many guys with the defensive versatility, the ability to just be adequate offensively. He's not a bad offensive piece. And then you look at his height and weight. He's a unique guy. 5'7", 150 pounds, just 23 years old. He's from Venezuela, made his major league debut last year with the Fish, just played in 15 games, had 35 at-bats, but he's had an important role now on this Marlins team. He can play all over the diamond, number one. And that defensive versatility, I think, gives him a lot of value. You're going to have Sanoja, who can play second. He can play shortstop. He could play third. He could play center field. The guy quite literally could play any position, I think, and be adequate at it, which in Major League Baseball, that's a skill not a lot of people have. He's had to play a lot because of injuries throughout the season. At one point, Xavier Edwards was injured. Otto Lopez dealt with an injury. Connor Norby, of course, has been hurt off and on all season long, it's felt like. Graham Pauley's dealt with an injury. So when pressed into action, Sanoja is a pretty good fourth infielder. I look at him as like that jack of all trades, that Swiss Army knife. Not necessarily a starter, but a player who can get the job done. And I've seen some discourse where fans will say they want Javier Sanoja to be the starting third baseman. And I think Sanoja's value is kind of what he's doing right now this year, playing different positions and getting multiple starts a week and getting his at-bats, but not necessarily locked into just one. Yesterday, we talked about Connor Norby and Graham Pauley. And for those of you who missed the show, I am a believer in Graham Pauley, especially his defense. I think he should be the third baseman of next season, assuming the Marlins are limited to their internal options and they're not going to go out and make a major addition on that side of the infield. And so Javier Sanoja is not going to be a starter, and that's okay. Assuming it's Pauley or Norby at third, unless Otto gets traded or Xavier Edwards gets traded, he's not going to be the starting second baseman or shortstop, barring an injury. So is he going to be the center fielder? Well, no, we have Jacob Marcy now. So what Sanoja can do reminds me a lot of John Birdie. And of course, John Birdie was a member of the 2023 Marlins, the team that made the playoffs, and he had a really good year that season. Played in 133 games, hit .294, an OPS of 749. Not a ton of power, just 7 bombs, and defensively could play all over the diamond. He can play second. He can play third. He could play shortstop. It's almost a similar profile, the same profile as Javier Sanoja. This season, Sanoja's bat is hitting 236, on base percentage of 282, OPS of 662, 5 homers, 35 driven in. He's also hit 21 doubles. And I think that's a stat that it certainly took me by surprise because I didn't expect that many doubles from Javier Sanoja. I envisioned him more of just a pure singles hitter, a poor man's Luis Arias, because he doesn't have the bat speed or, the exit velocities. His average exit velo is well below average, doesn't hit the ball very hard. But what he does very well is he doesn't strike out, 12.5% strikeout rate, excellent, and he doesn't swing and miss. So he's not going to, with that pitches, he's going to put the ball in play, and he's got decent enough speed to where when you put the ball in play, good things can happen. Sanoja's a gritty, fun player to root for. And sometimes when you watch him, it doesn't look like, I hate to say this, but he doesn't look like a major leaguer. Excuse me. Because he just looks so young and he's so tiny in the box. Again, 5'7". But he's here because of his ability to make contact. And this was his first real test. I mean, his rookie season, obviously he got the cup of coffee in the minors or in the majors right before the end of 2024. But this is where he's gotten the bulk of his playing time. And I'm thinking about John Birdie and Javier Sanoja and the parallels you can put together for them. John Birdie offensively outperformed Sanoja in that 2023 year. Again, hitting close to 300. But the year before, in 2022, he was putting up essentially Javier Sanoja's numbers for this season. He hit 240, an OPS of 662, 4 homers. But he struck out more than Sanoja did. Sanoja has better bat to ball skills, one of the best bat to ball skills in the organization. So for Sanoja, if he can take a step forward next season and be that utility guy who still plays good defense all around the diamond and then is hitting just a little bit more, well, then that's a really fun player. And that's a great backup to have. That's a great option to have. Depth is an important thing. Depth is always a good problem. And it's not a problem, but sometimes there's the question of, especially on the pitching staff, but it can be looked at with the lineup as well. Well, how do we fit these guys in the lineup? How do we give them their at-bats? I think Sanoja has the perfect answer to that because he's not locked into that one position. If Otto Lopez gets hurt, there you go. There's your fill-in. There's your backup. If Xavier Edwards needs a day off, he's struggling a little bit, then you put in Javier Sanoja. So I'm a big fan of his. I think he's a super exciting player. He brings electricity. He plays the game with a smile on his face. And it's going to be exciting to see, the rest of the way this season and in 2026, how much action he gets in the Marlins lineup and games that he plays. Another player that, again, I haven't talked about a lot, but it's time to really take a more in-depth look at and see what the Marlins are trying to do, is Joey Wiemer. Joey Wiemer is getting some playing time, just kind of came out of nowhere, and reminds me a lot of Kyle Stowers. We're going to talk about that right after this. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you put off Organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Everybody likes saving money, right? Saving money is great. You feel comfortable. You can use your savings, maybe go see the Marlins at Lone Depot, that last weekend series against the Mets. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. If you want to maximize your investments and increase that savings rate, use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. There's nothing like catching a baseball game live. And if you want to go out to Lone Depot Park to watch the Marlins, they got one series left against the Mets. I'm really hoping the Fish can play spoiler that final series of the season. If you want to go see them, I encourage you getting your tickets via Gametime. Gametime is the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's fast, easy, it's backed by the Gametime guarantee, and you'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. And the best part for me is the all-in pricing. All the fees are included, so when you go to checkout, there's not a number that's going to surprise you. The number you see when you get your ticket is the number you're going to pay. And I think it's super great. You can also check out the seat view before you buy, so you know exactly what you're going to see, what vantage point you have from the seat from your ticket. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. Thank you to all the everyday listeners who make tuning into Locked On Marlins part of your daily routine. Joey Wiemer. Let's talk about the newest Marlins project is how I look at it, because he certainly is a project. This isn't a player that was brought in to be an immediate star, right? There's work to be done. So back in early August, right after the trade deadline, Wiemer gets claimed off of waivers from the Kansas City Royals. And to be completely transparent, I didn't know a ton about him. So I was doing some research. He was a former prospect with the Brewers. He made his debut there, played in 132 games a couple of years ago, hit just 204, but he did have some good pop. He hit 13 bombs and to go, unfortunately, with 116 strikeouts. It just looks like he was very boom or bust, a very raw prospect. Moves on from Milwaukee, goes to the Cincinnati Reds system. From the Reds, he goes to the Royals. The Royals put him on waivers, and now he finds himself with the Marlins. And through 18 games, he's played 18 games after the Marlins claimed him from the Royals. 51 at-bats. He's hitting .235, an OPS of .719, 3 homers, 11 RBIs, and he's added a couple of doubles. So you go to his Savant profile, and you see the number one thing that stands out to me is this guy hits the ball really hard. His average exit velocity, 90.9 miles an hour. That's in the red. Hard hit percentage, 59.4%. So, again, very small sample size, but he's hitting the ball extremely hard, and that's a good quality to have, because when you crush the ball, when you're putting good swings on it, getting those high EVs, it's going to turn into extra base hits. It's going to turn into home runs. Now, the bad thing, the dude strikes out a lot. 37.5% strikeout rate, and so far with the Marlins, he's got 11 strikeouts and just 1 walk. 21 strikeouts to 1 walk. 11 strikeouts would have been a little bit more manageable, but 21 strikeouts, that walk to strikeout ratio is a work in progress. He does remind me a lot of Kyle Stowers, not just because he looks like a Kyle Stowers clone, like he could be Stowers' long-lost brother. They look that much alike. There's no relation there, but they both got the flowing blonde hair. I mean, it's actually kind of a phenomenon how similar they look like. But when Stowers came into the Marlins system, he was so raw. He was struggling. And the Marlins stuck with him. He worked in the offseason to become better, and he became not just a serviceable player, but an all-star level player. The Marlins' lone all-star was Kyle Stowers. He's the best hitter in the Marlins lineup when he's healthy, and unfortunately, he hasn't been healthy. I doubt we're going to see him before the season ends. He hit the injured list a couple weeks back, and it's disappointing, but Stowers was the man, and heading into 2026, he's going to be looked at as the best offensive piece for the Marlins. Who would have thought that after what we saw from Stowers in 2024? Here's what I will say. The Marlins must see something with Joey Wiemer. And I see something because I think he's a good fielder. He's got good speed, and he hits the ball hard. Now the question is, can you, number one, get a better eye at the plate, and number two, improve your bat-to-ball skills? Because if you do those two things, and that those two things should be the focal point of Joey Wiemer this offseason, then spring training in the Grapefruit League is going to be really interesting. Because what if Joey Wiemer just absolutely tears it up in Grapefruit League play? And he makes his adjustments that he needs to, and he's taking more pitches. He's not chasing as much. He's not striking out as much. And then suddenly the qualities that made the Marlins interested him in the first place stand out more. And you're seeing, he's ripping 100-mile-an-hour doubles. He's crushing home runs left and right. Then you're going to have a big decision, because where do these pieces all fit in? I think it's safe to say Jacob Marcy is locked into being the Marlins center fielder in 26. I think it's safe to say Kyle Stowers is locked in to a starting position in either left or right. Probably left. What about that third and final spot? I mean, let's take a look. Let's take a look at what the Marlins have to work with. Because in my mind, this is going to be an epic competition. A competition that is going to exude excellence. Somebody is going to come out, and the best option is going to be the Marlins' third and final outfielder in 2026. I love competition. It's great for the sport. Heriberto Hernandez had a really good rookie season. Nobody saw that coming. Dane Myers, he's struggled, but the Marlins give him opportunities. We've seen what he can do. In the minor leagues, Victor Mesa Jr., he hasn't really been given an extensive look at the major league level. A couple of stints in the majors, he just got optioned back to AAA. Joey Wiemer, who this segment is about. Kemp Alderman. When do the Marlins feel that Kemp Alderman will be ready? I think that's an incredible storyline to watch for in this offseason. Is internally, the Marlins have two studs that are locked into a starting role in the outfield. But behind them, who is that third guy? I didn't even mention Derek Hill, although, I mean, the Marlins like keeping him around for defensive purposes especially, but offensively, he's such a hard watch offensively. Oh, and then I even forgot to mention Griffin Conine. Griffin Conine, who's probably the biggest name of them all and is the favorite to win a starting role in 26. But here's the thing. Everything is earned, nothing is given. Griffin had a great start to 2025. He hit 281, OPS of 790. That was across 64 at-bats. Boom. Right at the end of April, he gets hurt. He's done. Now he's coming back. He was out a few months, but he's coming back. He's in a rehab assignment. I think it's safe to say that Conine has the inside track on the starting role in 26, but it's not guaranteed. And even if you want to give the starting job to Conine, you're going to need backups. You're going to need a fourth outfielder. Maybe Wiemer can be that guy. They brought him in for a reason. Again, fostering competition. You see these tools, the speed, the ability to just hit the ball really hard, and maybe he's raw, maybe he's not as developed as other players, but the raw tools stand out. So I can't wait to see what happens. And I'm going to be watching for him over these last 11 games. Watch for these individual players, see how they do. Ryan Weathers gets the start tonight against the Rockies. Hopefully the Marlins can take the win and win the series. And you never know. 1-0, you go to 2-0. Anything can happen. That's going to do it for today's edition of Locked on Marlins. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And until next time, stay safe, stay locked on, and let's go fish.